Next speaker is Mariko Takagi. She's been researching Japanese and Chinese typography for the past 15 years. Last year, she published her 11th book, and the topic of today, Layers of Information in Japanese Text, emphasizing typographically, will be the subject of a 4th book in a series. Please welcome Mariko Takagi.
Very much. Is this mic? Okay, I see. Yeah, thank you very much for having me here today. I'm very excited that it's possible to be in one place again at one time zone. I think the last years were kind of strange. So my topic of today is related to Japanese typography, and therefore I will take you to Japan for the next few minutes. And I structured my talk today a little bit, and I will first start with my previous research, because I think some of you haven't maybe listened to my presentations before. So I will start with this first. My beginning, or in a way, my first trial really to research on Japanese typography started in 2008, when I started my PhD at Braunschweig University. And there, I chose a quite big topic. So starting with Japanism and the way how Japan is visually presented, and then going forward to talk about Japanese writing system and Japanese typography. And this is kind of a treasure box for me, this research, because there are so many topics, and I really wanted to dig deeper and deeper into each topic until my supervisor said, stop it now. So, because she had to read it, and she said at one point you have to stop and move forward. You can always pick up the topics and go deeper later on. And that's what I'm doing in a way. So in 2014 I published Hanjigraphy, and this was one experiment in talking about Chinese characters using their shapes and not linguistic ideas. And comparing it, for example, with Latin letters. I was not Latinizing Chinese characters, but I used this tool to name elements and to make it more understandable for the readers. And the second book in this series was Kanjigraphy. I published this in German because my PhD I wrote in German. So this was for me the normal connection. But then I got a lot of feedback saying, why didn't you write it in English instead? So this was the book where I talked about the writing system more in depth, and then going forward to say how this writing system can be applied to a typography in a very special way. And the book I published last year, this is Emojigraphy, and there I triggered the topic of whether kanjis are ideograms or logograms. This was something that bothered me a long time. And so I found ways in talking about this topic in that book. So this is still available, and it's in English. So yeah, please try to find it if you're interested. And today, I want to talk about typesetting in Japanese, and especially when it comes to the question, how can we emphasize certain wordings or certain phrases by using typographic means. Because Japanese is said to be the most complicated writing system in the world. And this has a long history. So already Basil Hall Chamberlain, he was in Japan in the 19th century and 20th century. He said, it's the most complicated on this planet. And he was referring to a missionary who said already in the 16th century, the Japanese writing system, but also the language, is a kind of a torturing system for foreigners. So it has a long history of the stereotype. And I'm talking about this kind of writing right now, so you can have easily 4 different scripts within one sentence. And if I just put it in horizontal line, it's quite easy to typeset. And you also see like the different styles. So therefore, I think it's quite easy like to read it. But then like when we put it vertically, we see like the first challenges, especially about the Latin letters. And this will be also like one thing that I will mention in my next book. But today, like I want to rather talk about like one thing, that is like how to emphasize certain particles, like without having an italic or without having small capitals. And also the history of complaining about the Japanese writing system from the perspective of Japanese is quite old. So Hiromu Hara, like he was one of the first designers and scholars like who did research on new typography and published Chichol's and L. Lisitsky's ideas in Japan, like already in the 1920s and 1930s. He also complained about the Japanese writing system and that it is not very useful to create interesting typography. And even nowadays, like this is continuing. Kasai Kaoru, also a very famous designer, said like he found it kind of challenging, but at the same time, like he rather would love to do typographic design with Latin letters. So the obstacles, like often mentioned, is like this hybrid writing system, the number of glyphs, like which are extreme, and then the complexity of characters. Like you can have one character only built by one stroke, and up to 64 strokes. So and the last one is what I've just mentioned. Like there's no italic and no small caps. And also it's quite difficult to build up a font family. So yeah, so this also leads to the idea maybe it's difficult to do some emphasizing. So this leads me like to the next topic, because I want to talk about opportunities. So how can we use maybe the writing system to do something special? And first I will start with the rather simple ideas, and maybe which are closer to Latin letter typography. And this is like, there is a specific interpretation of font families. So I borrowed this from Ryota Doi, like who worked on the Shorai-san, like one newer typeface by Monotype. And this is the glyph set he prepared, like in only one weight. And you can see like the huge amount of Chinese characters, kanjis, in this glyph set, like all the black areas, the dark areas are kanjis. And although there are so many, in a regular Japanese text, so not scientific text, but just maybe an essay, you will have 60 to 70% set in kana type. And like who really reacted in a very nice way was Ajioka Shintaro, who published in 1980s a typeface called Ajioka Shintaro Kanamoji. And he there proposed that, yeah, just by designing variations of kana, we can have a lot of expressions, and we can just widen up like the way how to visualize language. And for that, he borrowed from TypeBank the kanji typefaces, and there are like 4 groups in a way. So 2 Mincho styles and 2 Gothic styles. And within that, like you have 5 variants of kana. And this is refined and digitized and now available at Adobe Font. So you can choose between 2 kanji types, either the Mincho style or the modern version of the Mincho style. Like this is more straightforward, more sharp. And maybe like if we see it on the screen and not looking at the first like horizontal stroke, the one, then maybe it's difficult to see the differences. But the hiragana do the job. So they bring in like the atmosphere, and they bring in like a certain flow, or maybe also kind of something that stops our eyes. So this is like one opportunity. Like for example, we can change the kana styles, depending on whether we are doing maybe a citation or we want to put a stress on something. So the second opportunity, of course, quotation marks and other marks. So there are the Japanese, these kind of corner brackets, like also used in Chinese, like this is something common. And we can, for example, put like one character in this bracket, like to stress it. But we also use those kind of prime quotation marks and the double quotation marks. And it's interesting, like in, if you look at typographic rule books, like you see for the vertical, the prime quotation marks are used, and for horizontal line, there's the other one. So there's a kind of dividing the way how it is used. More interestingly is like to look at how it is maybe applied by authors. And you can see, like by reading, for example, essays, that each author has his or her own style in applying that. So for example, Tajima Yoko, she uses the corner brackets, for example, to visualize direct speech, but then using the prime quotation marks like to stress out like some words which are important to her. So I will go quickly to this. And, but it can be like within a text quite close to each other. And by just looking at the type of quotation marks, you immediately start to understand like what is that text part or this text part. So after getting used to this rule, like an author is setting off within a book, like you can easily decipher the meaning of it. Murakami Haruki, like he's extremely well known, so I think you also read some of his books, and he's using a different way. You find it here. And he's using those kind of dots, like if you set it vertically, it's called sesame dot. I like it very much. And then you have the round dots if it would be horizontal. But you can have variants again, like there's not only the sesame dot and the black dot, but there are again variants. Maybe not so often seen, but it's possible to use those as well. And then in the same book, I found this one. And I didn't expect it to find it here, but it is, sorry, it was too quick. It is something like LOL, like lol, laughing out loud. Normally you only find it in maybe emails or SNS, but there he's using it in his printed book. So opportunity 3, and I think like this is one of the beautiful opportunities, like the other opportunities, it's easy to get there. But I think like for that one, you do it with the writing system and you do it somehow on the language level. So I use again like this sample text, 私の街は星が見えない. This is the title of a book one of my graduate students made, and it's just so short, and you can use different ways of visualizing it, so it's perfect for this example. So watashi, my, and hoshi is written in kanji, but I can also write it in hiragana. And I do not have to read watashi, but I can also read it watakushi. And this gets a completely different connotation and another tone. So a little bit posh, maybe. And then Machi. She chose to write it in hiragana, but I have 2 kanji options. So I can write it this way as well. And also, like, depending on which kanji I choose, somehow the meaning hidden behind is different. Like I can talk about the size of the town, maybe I can say whether there are a lot of shops or whether it's a cozy one. So, and then mienai, so seeing, cannot see. I can also put it in kanji. So, and I just shown you like this bunch of choices that I have and that I can make on the level of choosing the writing. And I'm very sure that I missed some of the options. And then we have furigana. Like furigana are, of course, extremely useful. Like, for example, if we teach kanji, or if we use also some special readings. So this is very straightforward. It's just a phonetic writing and just phonetizing like how to read it. But I can also do some special arrangements. So I can use a kanji for machi, which is normally used for kokyo or furusato, meaning hometown or meaning native place. And by doing that, I can implement the town or the place I'm talking about is my hometown. So making this relation, I can also play a bit and writing stars in romaji. And with this, maybe I'm adding a little bit of exotic, but I'm asking the reader to pronounce it hoshi and not stars. So you find it in like different literatures and different applications, but I found this quite interesting. So a book by Isabella Dionisio, and this is saying onna o kakenai otoko tachi, or you can read it onna o kakenai bungo tachi. And this is a special turn because bungo means in a way like the master of literature or a literary master. And here she's adding the reading for men. So male authors who cannot properly write about women. Like this is her idea behind it, but she's like indicating it in a way. And you find it in all other materials as well. So for example, this is a book by Kawahata Naomichi on Hiromu Hara. And here he's doing another twist. Like he's using a kanji written word and adding katakana, but the katakana is saying not gakushateki, like which is the Japanese word, but pedantic. And gakushateki would be like a scholar, scholarly. But then he's adding this word pedantic. And it's the question whether it is a kind of sarcastic tone or whether he is like implementing here to say like Hara Hiromu mostly did research on Western typography and applying it to Japanese typography. So yeah, these were some opportunities in using furigana, but also quotation marks, or even like doing it with different styles or different rates. So this brings me to the conclusion. So this is a citation by Kyuyo Ishikawa. He's a calligrapher, but also a scholar in kanji. And he said, letters are not merely symbols of language, but the language itself, which produces sentences and literary styles. And another one by Asaba Katsumi-san, like he said, at any given moment in the history of writing, which continues for 3,300 years, the tension of the word transferring to writing manifests as iconography. I like to call this typographic design. And these two citations, I think, they show very well, like for the Japanese typography, there are so many opportunities to visualize ideas and to write down like a second tone or a second layer, which is difficult to express in the phonetic language or maybe in phonetizing it. So a lot of things you can just present to a reader or give opportunities of reading by choosing the way how you do it. So I'm working on this topic right now. So I'm hoping like to somehow finish it by 2025. And it doesn't have any name right now. So maybe I should start by thinking about the name and then continuing with it. But I'm working on this idea of this time talking about the writing system in sense of putting the words together and doing the typesetting. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mariko Takagi. So we have time for questions. Anybody? Second speaker that respects the timing. We're so happy now. Thank you so much. Anybody have questions? Yes, up there. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I've seen most of these things since I live in Japan since 3.5 years, but I still don't quite understand why people would use a kanji or a kana. Like if somebody in an email to me writes yoroshiku onegaishimasu with like 2 kanji or all in hiragana or something, what kind of feeling or whatever do they want to convey?
Yeah, I think like in the tone, if you choose the kanji for that, it's more official and maybe a little bit stiff, but you also create a kind of a distance between the reader and the writer. And for, yeah, if you write it in hiragana, maybe it is like one thing, it could be like more frankly, or in a way like more casual, but it could be also like, for example, if they may think you are new to kanji, so they are trying to be kind and offer you the hiragana version.
Oh, sweet.
So you can
Okay.
read it different ways, but maybe it's also more friendly. Like if you use sometimes more hiragana, so it's not so stiff, I would say. But also like for the idea of making it readable for you.
Oh, okay, like the difference between newspaper and a children's book. Okay, but in regular novel text, what would they say? I mean, that's for a broader audience.
Yeah, you can play, for example, if it is a direct speech, like, and if you say it's a kid or it's a youngster like saying it, maybe you can also do it. It's more casual, more maybe childish, or yeah, not an old person. Yeah, so you can also express the rank of a person in a way, but also like how it is addressed, or whether it's between friends or business partners. Like, yeah, there are a lot of possibilities, and I think like the more kanjis you use, the more official it becomes, and
Okay.
creating a kind of distance as well. But yoroshiku onegaishimasu is maybe not the best example for that.
No, just, yeah, there was something. It comes up, of course, in like 4 different versions when you type it, and then you get that whole list. So I was wondering. Thank you, that helps.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the lecture. I must admit, I cannot read in Japanese at any notation system, but just the idea recalls to me the book of Cortázar, La Rayuela, so the hopscotch in a way. And my question, is this kind of notation used for also in Japanese culture for writing poetry? Are they using this double way of reading, tone changing, etc.? Sorry if it is too naive question.
Yeah, I need to say, like, I'm not reading too many poetry, so therefore I can't tell. But at this point, like, yeah, maybe I need to go back and see, and yeah, I can maybe take it into the book as a kind of a topic as well.
Anybody else? There. Volunteer ran off, so I'm going to run.
Thank you. The example you showed that in novel, author can use punctuation like so flexible. I want to ask, like, if there are any document to guide people how to use punctuation correctly in Japan.
Okay, yeah, there are like some quite useful books talking about this typesetting rules. So you find them like, in a way, like in different books talking about typography and typesetting, but I think most of them are published in Japanese. And I think there was also like a booklet printed by Morisawa, like talking about this typographic rules. So there are certain documents around, but yeah.
Last question.
Thank you. Thank you for your excellent presentation. Since you have been did research for Hanzi graphy and kanji. So can you please like conclude what's the key difference between kanji and Hanzi? And from the perspective of like kind of letter form, is the shape of those different characters.
You mean like talking about kanji and Hanzi?
Yes, what's the key
Okay.
difference between the design perspectives? Yeah.
Yeah, this was not really like the topic of this talk this time, but yeah, I think like I read a text like once talking about the positioning between simplified kanji, then the traditional kanji, like still used in Taiwan and also in Hong Kong, and then the Japanese kanjis. Like one scholar told me once that from the Chinese perspective, the Japanese kanjis are also regarded as simplified. So I did this comparison in the first book, in hanjigraphy. There I've chosen like some characters and positioned them side by side, like to see how the character is defined in each of the writing systems. So you can see there a certain tendency also like when you are simplifying a character. So maybe like, I have today my laptop with me and I think I have the PDF of that book with me as well. So maybe later on, like if you talk to me during the break, I can show you the pages. Okay. Oh, yeah. And Susanna just said like she has also in her book like a whole paragraph about punctuation system.
Okay, thank you, Mariko.
With me, Dan Radigan.